Hello everyone. Let's get into this quick. This is part 3 of the 300 Greek deities Iceberg. Yep, just the deities. I previously thought the Iceberg included monsters because there's no way there are 300 Greek deities. Well, oops, all deities. Anyway, this channel is super new, so it's super important that you like and comment on these videos, as YouTube is pretty unkind to new and small channels at first. But if you don't know what to comment, you can always comment an emoji, like a gem or something. If this is your first video you're seeing of mine, you can see the other parts you missed on the end card, as well as a playlist. But please make sure to finish this video before checking one of those out, because of, more annoying algorithm stuff. Anyway, make sure to subscribe for more Greek mythology, and let's get started for real this time. Part 3. You played Hades. Demeter. Goddess of harvest, agriculture, fertility, and various grains and veggies. Demeter is another one of the children of Cronus, and like most of Zeus's sisters, has birthed a kid for him. This kid is Persephone, the niece wife victim of Hades. If the family tree is starting to get confusing, that's because it is. With there being so few gods in the beginning, and many of them having slept with their relatives, and before the gods there were titans, and there were even fewer of them. A whole lot of incest amongst Greek gods. But the effects of incest weren't really that well known until just a few hundred years ago, although we've always had a pretty good idea of like, hey, you shouldn't sleep with your relatives because it's weird and wrong and bad. Before we even knew about the negative effects, like things like the Habsburg jaw. Anyway, Demeter's most famous myth is about Persephone's abduction, and Persephone is in this layer, so let's wait until the end of this layer for that one. Demeter was a god of just general nature, but after the situation with Hades and Persephone, she's more known as a god of winter, especially with how she's depicted in the video game Hades. Which, honestly, Hades is just so accurate, and builds on the myths in such a great way that you can... I don't think many people would argue with you if you said that you wanted to call it canon. Hephaestus. We went over him a little bit before. He's the god of fire, volcanoes, blacksmithing, artisanry, and stuff like that. He's most well known for being the first ugly guy with a wife that's too hot for him. He's also pretty well known for forging the various automatons and weapons of the many gods and heroes. As for myths, Hephaestus was born as such an uggo that his mother Hera yeeted him down to the ocean where Thetis, the mother of Achilles, raised him. In the oldest myths, he got revenge on Hera by making her a golden throne that when she sat on it, her cheeks fused to the sea and she was unable to stand ever again. The gods begged him to return to Olympus and let her go, and he responded, I don't have a mother. Absolutely king shit, honestly. We love him. We love him for that. We love ourselves an ugly king. But in the future myths, Ares got at him first, and Hephaestus turned him away with torches. Eventually, Dionysus, the god of wine and parties, knocked him out with booze and carried him back up to Olympus. As we know, Hephaestus got married to Aphrodite, and she was unfaithful. She slept with Ares, and the son Helios snitched on the two, and so Hephaestus made a magic chain link net and ensnared the two the next time they engaged in the horizontal tango. Once caught, Hephaestus dragged them back down to Olympus and put them down in front of the other Olympians to mock them. Everyone laughed at them until Poseidon asked Hephaestus to free them in exchange for Ares paying the adulterer's fine. But in the Odyssey, Hephaestus returned Aphrodite to her father and demanded he get a refund. Because I guess she was, dysfunctional. When you buy a product and it doesn't work, you're supposed to get your money back. Because I guess that's how he viewed her. Anyway, good thing Hephaestus is the god of fire, because both of those are sick burns. Artemis. She's the twin sister of Apollo and the goddess of nature, childbirth, wildlife hunting, sudden death, animals, virginity, young women, and archery. Kind of ironic that she's both the goddess of childbirth and virginity, and she's also a virgin herself. Despite being pushed off to the side in her own birth myth by Apollo chatting out and killing Python as a child, Artemis doesn't have... As a child, she sat on her father Zeus's lap and asked him to grant 10 wishes. The first was to be a virgin forever. Honestly, with what we know about Zeus, this was probably a pretty good call. The second was to have many different names to set her apart from her brother. 3, to have a bow made by the Cyclops. Hephaestus makes great weapons, but a weapon from the Cyclops would put her on par with her own father Zeus. 4, to be the Lightbringer. 5, to have a short tunic so she can hunt effectively. 6, to have 60 daughters of Okeanos to be her choir. I don't know what made Okeanos' kids so special. He's the son of Uranus and Gaia, making him a god and or Titan 2. 7 was to have 20 nymphs as handmaidens to watch over her weapons and hunting dogs while she rests. 8 was to rule the mountains. 9 was to be assigned any city and only to visit when called on by mothers in labor. And for the 10th and final wish, she has to be able to help women with the pains of labor. Artemis believed that she was chosen by the fates to be a midwife, since she assisted her own mother with the birth of her twin brother. So not only did Apollo commit murder at 1, his twin sister helped birth him at 0, Hestia, goddess of the hearth, home, sacred fire, virginity, family, and the state. Hestia is the oldest child of Kronos and Rhea, making her the firstborn child and the eldest sibling. But fun fact, since all the babies Kronos regurgitated were barfed up in reverse, that means Hestia was the last to be born, making her simultaneously the youngest child of Kronos too. This might seem weird, but when Kronos consumed all his kids, he did so as babies and they didn't age. But Zeus did, since he wasn't swallowed. So Hestia was first to be swallowed, and would be at the bottom of his stomach, and yarfed up last. So yeah, she's both the youngest and the oldest child of Cronus, and Zeus is also both the oldest and youngest child of Cronus. Like Artemis, she's a goddess of virginity, and similarly, she gained the power of unlimited virginity by pledging service to her brother Zeus. There isn't much in the way of myth about her. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, warfare, handicrafts, and patron deity of Athens. She's also Zeus's favorite daughter, and some of my favorite myths are about her. I'll just share the one about her birth. Maybe later I'll share some myths about what she did to Arachne, but anyway, Athena is the result of a miraculous conception, sort of. Zeus heard a prophecy that both he and his wife at the time, Metis, would give birth to a child smarter than both of them. Afraid of being deposed in much the same way his father was, he swallowed Metis, the god of counsel, while preggers with Athena. Later he developed a splitting headache. Literally. One day, Athena split Zeus's skull open from the inside out and stepped out of Zeus's dome piece, fully grown, fully armed, and fully clad in armor. Hera was a bit jealous that Zeus essentially gave birth on his own without any of her help, so in an attempt of one-upsmanship, she gave birth to Hephaestus by herself, and we know how well that ended already. In other versions, though, Hera is super chill with it because she didn't know about Metis and apparently anything about sex ed, and was excited because it was like her and Zeus had a child of their own. Dionysus. If you played Hades, then you know about how rad of a dude Dionysus is. I pronounced it both the Greek way and the English way. Oh, let me know which one is more annoying to you. Because I like to pronounce it the non-American way, because it really bothers Updog, he's in the streams. It really bothers him when I pronounce it Dionysus. Anyway, he's the god of wine, fertility, festivities, ritual madness, religious ecstasy, and theater. He's all about the hedonist lifestyle, booze, drugs, and orgies. Dionysus is weird in that he doesn't have one depiction or birth myth. In many depictions in various myths, he's portrayed as being two men, the old one being the son of Zeus and Persephone, and the younger inheriting the legacy of the older. The old one was often bearded, and the younger was long-haired and effeminate. If you played Hades, Dionysus is in the game. He seems to be a mix of the two, both long-haired and beardless, but still masculine. Dionysus' story is also complicated because he's based on a lot of gods, and a lot of gods are based on him. Almost every pantheon has a Dionysus. It's even thought that the Jewish god Yahweh is based on one of Dionysus' interpretations called Sabazius. The Christian god is also based on the Jewish god, so even the Christian god has its ties to Dionysus. Kind of lame that the number one party god got watered down into the Christian god who hates parties and orgies. Now for an even more fun fact. The old Dionysus who was born to Persephone was called Zagreus by the poet Nonnus. Zagreus is the protagonist of Hades who wishes to escape Hades and is depicted as being small and more androgynous compared to the other male gods, which is a bit weird because the Dionysus you meet would have to be the young Dionysus and the Zagreus the old. But their appearances are swapped. Anyway, in this birth myth, Zagreus, the old Dionysus, was torn limb from limb by the Titans of Hades, which fits well with the game as you repeatedly die and resurrect trying to escape. In the myth, Zagreus dies for realsies and is reincarnated as the Chad Dionysus we know now. For his second birth, the other poet, Hyginus, agrees that Dionysus, he calls him Liber, is born to the same gods and was torn apart, but Zeus picked up the pieces of his heart and served them in a drink to Semele, who became pregnant. Semele's mother told her to tell Zeus to come to her and bang her so she can feel the pleasure of sleeping with a god. Semele listened, and for once, Zeus turned down a chance at boning and instead struck her with a thunderbolt. Then he harvested Liber from her and gave him to Nisus. This is how he earns his name, Dionysus, the one born from 2 mothers. We don't have time for more myths because we have a lot of gods to go through, and I'm sure someone already made a video all about Zagreus and Dionysus's connections. Persephone. She's the queen of the underworld, goddess of spring, the dead, the underworld, and nature. Persephone is the daughter of Zeus and Demeter and is the wife of Hades and mother of Zagreus/Dionysus. As for how she became Hades' wife, well, it's not very pleasant. I'll avoid any violent language, but Zeus knew Hades wanted her, and Zeus said, "Listen, bro, I'm cool with it. Women are objects to me anyway. But Demeter, you know her. She isn't just going to let you marry her daughter if you just ask, so how about you just kidnap her?" Being an idiot, Hades agrees and kidnaps Persephone while she was busy collecting flowers with Artemis. Hades burst forth from the ground and yoinked her and zipped back down to hell. With Persephone gone, Demeter was distraught, enraged, and depressed, and in the absence of her joy, the earth was absent of life. Plants wouldn't grow, and fruit would not bear as long as Demeter was forced to bear the absence of her daughter. Eventually, Helios the sun and god of snitches told her what he saw, and Zeus heard many prayers from the humans of Earth that crops wouldn't fruit, and Zeus joined in on demanding the return of Persephone. Zeus explained that Persephone would be returned as long as she didn't eat the food of the underworld, as it's only for the denizens of the underworld. In the myths that I heard, Hades was kind to her and gave her gift after gift, and she refused them all. I think a serpent then found out she was hungry, and the snake tricked her to eat the pomegranate growing in her underworld garden. She ate it, similar to the story of Adam and Eve from Christian mythology. Once she did, she was bound to the underworld. Hermes was sent to get her from Hades, but because she had tasted the pomegranate, she was forced to return to hell for 1/3 of every year. And during that time, every year, Demeter is depressed, and plants refuse to grow. And this is what we call fall and winter. If you know nothing about, Greek mythology, you're like, oh, Hades is the bad dude because he's the king of the underworld, he's supposed to be the Satan figure or whatever, or because Disney portrayed him as evil, you're like, oh, he's the god of the underworld, so he's supposed to be the bad guy. But then you learn more about him, and you're like, oh, wait, he's actually not such a bad guy. And then you learn even more about him, and you're like, no, wait, he still sucks. So, yeah, Hades is not a great dude. So it's kind of like, you know, you got your normal brain, Hades sucks. You got your galaxy brain, Hades is a cool dude. And then you've got your, cosmic, eternity brain, and it's like, no, Hades sucks. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. You're so nice. I bet you hear that all the time. Remember to do the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you next time on Carfunkle. Stay funky.